My parents kicked me out at 18, ignored me for years, then demanded $30,000 for my sister's wedding. I refused, cut them off, and watched their lives crumble without me. I guess I always knew I was the expendable one in my family. My parents, Mike and Karen, had 2 kids, me and my younger sister, Emily. But to them, Emily wasn't just their daughter. She was their angel, their miracle, their golden child. Me? I was just there. If Emily wanted something, she got it. Ballet classes? Of course. Expensive summer camps? No problem. A brand new car on her 16th birthday? Obviously. Meanwhile, I was working at a grocery store at 14, saving up just to buy my own clothes. It wasn't just about money. It was the way they treated us. Emily got unconditional love. I got sarcasm, eye rolls, and constant reminders that I was so difficult. I wasn't a bad kid, I got good grades, stayed out of trouble, and worked hard. But it didn't matter. I wasn't Emily. Things came to a head when I turned 18. My parents sat me down one night, looking almost amused. Karen smirked and said, "Well, since you're an adult now, we think it's time for you to be independent." Mike chuckled. "Yeah, you're always talking about being responsible. So you should move out and make room for Emily. She needs the space." I thought they were joking. They weren't. I had 2 weeks to find a place to live. 2 weeks. Emily, by the way? She was 17. She wasn't moving out anytime soon. When I asked where I was supposed to go, my mom just waved me off. "You're a smart boy. You'll figure it out." I asked if I could stay until I at least found a stable job. I was juggling part-time work and college applications. That's when they laughed. Like, full-on laughed. "We raised you, fed you, housed you," my dad said, still chuckling. "It's time for you to stop being a burden." A burden. That's how they saw me. 2 weeks later, I was out. No financial help. No emotional support. Nothing. I cut contact and struggled for a while, but I made it. I got through college with scholarships, worked multiple jobs, and eventually built a life for myself. It wasn't easy, but at least I was free. For years, I heard nothing from them. Then, out of nowhere, I got a call. It was my mom. She sounded way too cheerful for someone who had completely abandoned her son. "We have wonderful news," she chirped. "Emily's getting married." I should have hung up. I should have seen where this was going. But I didn't. And that's when she dropped the bomb. "We were thinking, you're doing so well now, maybe you could help pay for the wedding." I actually laughed when my mom said that. Not because it was funny, because I genuinely thought she had to be joking. "Wait, what?" I asked, still trying to process the sheer audacity. "You're doing so well now," she repeated like that explained everything. "And Emily deserves a beautiful wedding." I let out a short, disbelieving breath. "And what does that have to do with me?" Karen sighed like I was being difficult. "Oh, don't be selfish. You're her brother. Family helps each other out." Family? Now they wanted to talk about family? The same family that laughed at me and threw me out with nothing? For a second, I just sat there, stunned. Then curiosity got the better of me. "How much are we talking about?" "Oh, nothing too crazy," she said quickly. "Just around $30,000. I almost dropped my phone. $30,000. "Are you serious?" I asked, half laughing again. "Well," she huffed, like I was being unreasonable. "Weddings are expensive. And Emily's dream venue is already booked, but we need the deposit soon. She's really excited, you know." I was this close to losing it, but I took a deep breath. "And why exactly would I pay for this?" "Well," she said, suddenly turning passive-aggressive, "it's not like we ever asked you for money before." I blinked. "You never asked me for money because you never spoke to me." "Don't be dramatic," she scoffed. "Look, we know you have the money. You have a good job, no wife, no kids. It's not like you need it all for yourself." I was done. "Oh, I see," I said coolly. "So, let me get this straight. You threw me out at 18, gave me nothing, ignored me for years, and now that you need money, suddenly I exist?" My mom made a dismissive noise. "Oh, stop making it sound so bad. We knew you'd be fine. You were always independent." I clenched my jaw. "No, I was forced to be independent because you abandoned me." She didn't like that. "You're being unfair." I laughed, but there was no humor in it. "Unfair? That's rich coming from you." Then, she actually tried to guilt-trip me. Do you have any idea how hard it's been for Emily? She whined. She's had to struggle, too. She had to delay her wedding for a whole year because we couldn't afford it. And she was so sad. I was speechless. My so-called perfect sister, who had everything handed to her, was struggling, because she couldn't have a Pinterest-perfect wedding on time. I took another deep breath. Let me make this clear. I owe you nothing. I owe Emily nothing. And if you call me again asking for money, you won't hear from me ever again. Mom gasped. You don't mean that. Oh, I do, I said. Because I'm like you, I know how to cut off family. And then I hung up. I thought that would be the end of it. I was so wrong. I expected my mom to try again. I even expected some guilt-tripping texts. What I didn't expect was the full-on smear campaign that followed. It started the next day. My phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. Wow, dude. You really turned your back on your own family? Selfish much? I frowned. Who the heck was this? Then another message came in. Emily's heartbroken. All she wanted was a special day, and you just threw it in her face. Some brother you are. I checked the number and realized it was one of Emily's friends. Then another message. And another. Emily had sent her entire bridal party after me. At first, I ignored them. Then, the messages got nastier. Wow, guess money really does change people. You're such a bitter loser. No wonder your family doesn't talk to you. I hope you enjoy being alone, because no one else will put up with you. I had to take a deep breath because, for a second, it got to me. But then I got mad. I typed out one response and sent it to every single person who texted me. Hey, since Emily apparently told you all about the situation, did she also mention that our parents kicked me out at 18 with nothing? That they laughed at me when I begged for time to find a stable job? That they ignored me for years and only reached out when they needed money? No? Interesting. Then I blocked every single one of them. But it didn't stop there. A few days later, my aunt called me. She was my mom's younger sister, and we'd always been somewhat close. But now, she sounded cautious. I just need to ask, she said carefully. Did you really refuse to help Emily out of spite? I sighed. Did my mom call you? She did, my aunt admitted. And she made it sound like you were just being cruel. But I know how she can be. That was putting it lightly. So, I told my aunt everything. The eviction, the years of silence, the entitled demand for money, the harassment from Emily's friends. By the time I finished, my aunt was silent. Then she sighed. I figured there was more to the story. I don't blame you at all. I was relieved, finally, someone in the family who actually listened. But then, she hesitated. You should know, your parents are telling everyone that you're rich now and just rubbing it in their faces. I actually laughed. Rich? Me? Sure, I had a stable job, and I was comfortable, but I wasn't out here swimming in money. I shook my head. If they think I'm rich, then why don't they ask me how I got here? Oh, wait, they wouldn't know, because they weren't there. My aunt sighed again. I just wanted to hear your side. I won't push you, but just be careful. You know how they are. Oh, I knew. And sure enough, things got worse. A week later, I got a notification on Facebook. My mom made a post. It breaks my heart when family turns their back on you. After everything we did for him, he refuses to help us in our time of need. It's sad how some people forget where they came from. We only asked for a little help, but I guess money matters more than family. I saw red. They wanted to play dirty? Fine. I was done staying quiet. I sat there, staring at my mom's post, feeling a mix of anger and disbelief. She had painted me as some heartless monster while completely leaving out everything they did to me. And of course, the comments were full of support. So sad when kids forget their parents' sacrifices. Stay strong, Karen. You raised him better than this. He'll regret it one day. I knew exactly what my mom was doing. She wanted sympathy. She wanted people to shame me into giving in. Well, two could play that game. I took a deep breath, then made my own post. Since my mom wants to talk about family turning their backs, let's be honest about what really happened. At 18, my parents kicked me out with nothing. They laughed when I asked for time to find a stable job. They ignored me for years while I struggled to survive. Now, after all this time, the first thing they do when they reach out is demand I pay $30,000 for my sister's wedding. When I said no, they called me selfish and sent people to harass me. So no. I didn't turn my back on them. They turned their backs on me a long time ago. I just finally accepted it. I hit post. And then? I watched the explosion happen in real time. The first comment came in 2 minutes later. Wait, they kicked you out? Then another. They laughed at you? And then, my mom saw it. Her comment popped up almost instantly. I can't believe you'd spread lies about your own family like this. We only wanted to teach you responsibility. I stared at my screen. Responsibility? I typed out my response. No, you wanted to get rid of me. You never did this to Emily. Just me. And now you suddenly remember I exist because you need money? That's not family. That's manipulation. The next thing I knew, Emily jumped in. Wow. Just wow. I can't believe you'd air private family issues online like this. This is why nobody likes you. Oh, so now she had something to say? You mean private issues like how our parents gave you everything while they treated me like a burden? Or how they expect me to fund your wedding? Since when did family issues matter to you? And that's when other people started speaking up. Some were old neighbors who remembered when I got kicked out. I always wondered what happened to you. I remember when your parents suddenly said you moved out on your own. I had a bad feeling about that. Then, one of my cousins chimed in. Honestly, I always thought the way they treated you was messed up. Good for you for standing your ground. My mom and Emily kept trying to fight back, but the damage was done. People weren't buying their story anymore. Then I got a text from my dad. Delete that post. Now. I stared at it for a second. Then I typed out my final response. No. And don't contact me again. And then? I blocked their numbers. I thought that would be the end of it. But I underestimated just how desperate they were. Because the next thing I knew, they showed up at my door. I was having a normal evening, just relaxing on my couch, watching TV, when I heard pounding at my front door. Not knocking. Pounding. A bad feeling crept up my spine. I already knew who it was. I checked the peephole. Yep. There they were, my parents. Karen stood front and center, arms crossed, looking furious. Mike was right behind her, looking like he'd rather be anywhere else. I sighed, debating whether I should even open the door. But I knew if I didn't, they'd probably make a scene. So, I braced myself and opened it. What do you want? Karen pushed past me like she owned the place. We need to talk. Mike followed, looking uncomfortable, but he didn't say anything. I closed the door, crossing my arms. Make it quick. Karen spun around, glaring. I cannot believe the stunt you pulled online. Do you have any idea how embarrassing that was? People are questioning us. I blinked. That's what she cared about. Not the way they treated me. Not the fact that they abandoned their own son. Just their reputation. I only told the truth. I said flatly. If you're embarrassed, that's on you. Karen scoffed. You twisted everything to make us look bad. I raised an eyebrow. Did I though? Did I lie about you kicking me out? Did I lie about you ignoring me for years? Did I lie about you demanding money the second you decided I was useful again? Karen opened her mouth, then closed it. She couldn't argue, because she knew it was true. Mike finally spoke, his tone calmer. Look, son. I know you're upset. I laughed. Oh, do you? Where was this concern when I was sleeping in my car after you threw me out? He looked away, rubbing his neck. It wasn't like that. It was exactly like that. I shot back. Karen groaned. Can we stop being dramatic? We made mistakes, sure, but that doesn't mean you just abandon your family. I stared at her. The hypocrisy was insane. So, let me get this straight, I said slowly. When you cut me off? That was just teaching me responsibility. But when I cut you off? Suddenly it's abandoning family? Karen rolled her eyes. It's not the same thing. Right. Because it's only okay when you do it. She huffed, clearly done with pretending to be reasonable. Look. All I know is, we raised you, we gave you everything. I burst out laughing. I couldn't help it. Everything? I repeated. You gave Emily everything. I had to fight for scraps. And you know what? Fine. I survived. I built my life on my own. Without you. And I will never let you guilt me into giving you a single cent. Karen's face turned red. I can't believe you're being this selfish over a wedding. I took a deep breath, then looked her straight in the eye. This isn't about the wedding. It's about you only treating me like family when you need something. And I'm done. Karen's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Mike just sighed, shaking his head. Let's go, Karen. This was pointless. Karen scoffed but turned to leave. As she walked out, she threw one last bitter remark over her shoulder. You'll regret this when you're all alone. I smiled. I'd rather be alone than be part of this family. I shut the door behind them, locked it, and let out a breath. Finally, it was over. Or so I thought. Because the next morning, I got a call from a lawyer. When I saw an unknown number pop up on my phone, I almost ignored it. But something told me to pick up. Hello? A professional-sounding man responded. Is this my name? Yes? This is David Miller, legal representative of Michael and Karen, last name. Your parents. I almost laughed. They actually got a lawyer? I leaned back, rubbing my temple. All right, David. What exactly is this about? David cleared his throat. Your parents have informed me that you made defamatory statements about them on social media, causing them emotional distress and harm to their reputation. I nearly dropped my phone. Are you kidding me? I let out a sharp laugh. So, let me get this straight. They threw me out, ignored me for years, begged for my money, harassed me when I said no, and now they want to sue me for hurting their feelings. David hesitated. I'm only relaying their concerns. They are requesting that you take down your post and issue a public apology. I smirked. And if I don't? There was a pause. Then, in a slightly less confident tone, he said, they may pursue legal action. I grinned. Go ahead. Excuse me? I sat up. Tell my parents to go ahead and sue me. I would love to explain, in front of a judge, how they kicked their own son onto the streets, ignored him for years, and only reached out when they wanted $30,000. David was silent. I continued. Oh, and since this would be a public case, all the messages from Emily's friends harassing me? That's evidence. The Facebook post my mom made shaming me before I ever said a word? More evidence. I could hear David shifting uncomfortably. I'll have to discuss this with my clients. You do that, I said cheerfully. And while you're at it, let them know that if they try this nonsense again, I'll be the one taking legal action, for harassment, emotional distress, and attempted financial manipulation. David quickly wrapped up the call after that. A few hours later, Maya texted me. Your parents are furious. Guess they realized suing you would backfire. I sent back one word. Good. I thought maybe, just maybe, they'd finally back off. But I underestimated how desperate they really were. Because next? Emily's fiancé called me. I was still shaking my head at the ridiculous lawyer stunt when my phone rang again. This time, it was a number I didn't recognize. Normally I'd ignore it, but something told me to pick up. Hello? A man's voice came through, hesitant but polite. Hey, is this my name? Who's asking? It's Jason. Emily's fiancé. I actually laughed. Now they were sending her future husband after me? This was getting pathetic. What do you want, Jason? I asked, already exhausted. Jason sighed. Look, man. I know things are messy with your family, but I just wanted to talk, civilly. I leaned back, skeptical. All right. Talk. I'm just trying to understand. He continued. Emily's really upset. She says you won't even consider helping with the wedding, and it's caused a lot of stress for her and her parents. I let out a short, humorless laugh. Jason, do you know why I won't pay? There was a pause. I mean, kinda? Emily said you had a falling out with your parents, but isn't that in the past? There it was. The sugar-coated version my parents must have fed him. I sighed. Let me guess. They told you I just left the family and now I'm being petty? Jason hesitated. Well, yeah. I shook my head. Unbelievable. Jason, let me break this down for you. I said calmly. My parents kicked me out at 18 with zero support. They laughed at me when I begged for time to get on my feet. They ignored me for years. Then, the first time they reach out, it's not to reconnect, it's to demand $30,000 for Emily's wedding. And when I said no, they tried to guilt trip, harass, and even threaten me legally. Jason was silent. Now tell me. I continued. Does that sound like a family I owe anything to? A long exhale came through the phone. Damn. I didn't know all that. Of course you didn't, I said bitterly. Because they didn't tell you. Another pause. Then Jason spoke, a little more awkwardly. Look, I won't lie. That's really messed up. But the thing is, we already put deposits down. We kinda counted on your help. I nearly dropped my phone. I blinked. You what? Jason coughed. Well, Emily and your mom were so confident you'd say yes, so we booked a venue, caterers, all that. I burst out laughing. Let me get this straight, I said between chuckles. You guys planned an entire wedding based on money you didn't even have? When you put it like that, it sounds bad. Oh, it's hilarious. Jason sighed. Man, I'm really stuck here. I love Emily, but this whole situation is a nightmare. I took a deep breath, then leveled with him. Jason, I have nothing against you. But let me be crystal clear, I am not paying a single cent. Your fiancée and her parents tried to use me like an ATM, and when that didn't work, they attacked me. That's not my problem. That's theirs. Jason was quiet again. Then he muttered, Yeah. I kinda get it now. I shrugged. Best of luck, man. But this is not my problem. I hung up. I thought that would be the end of Jason's involvement. I was wrong. Because a week later, Jason called off the wedding. A week after Jason's call, Maya texted me. Emily's wedding is cancelled. I stared at my phone. No way. Curious, I checked social media. Sure enough, Emily had deleted all her wedding-related posts. Then I got another text from Jason. Hey. I called it off. I raised an eyebrow and replied. Why? His response came fast. Too many red flags. The entitlement, the lies. I realized I'd be marrying into a family that only takes. Thanks for opening my eyes, man. I sat back, stunned. I never expected Jason to actually walk away. But the fallout? Oh, it was just beginning. Because next, Emily had a meltdown. The very next day, my phone blew up, not from Emily, but from my mom. Are you happy now? Emily is devastated. Jason left her because of you. I rolled my eyes. Of course, it was my fault. Then, Emily herself finally snapped. She left me a voicemail, screaming. You ruined my life. Jason was perfect, and now he's gone. All because you had to be a selfish jerk. I hope you're proud of yourself. I just sat there shaking my head. Emily didn't blame our parents for assuming I'd fund her wedding. She didn't blame herself for treating Jason like a walking wallet. Nope. It was all my fault. I deleted the voicemail. Not my problem. But my parents? They weren't done blaming me yet. A few days later, my dad called. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the better of me. The moment I picked up, he sighed heavily. Son, I just don't understand why you're doing this. I scoffed. Doing what, exactly? You tore this family apart. He said, like I was some villain. Emily's heartbroken, your mother's a wreck, and now Jason's family is spreading rumors about us. I smirked. You mean the truth? Dad ignored that. Look, you've made your point. But can't you just apologize? Help smooth things over? I almost laughed. They still thought I owed them something. No, Dad, I said calmly. I can't. And honestly, this conversation is over. You're really cutting us off? I exhaled. I cut you off years ago. You just didn't notice until you needed my money. Silence. Then a cold, fine. And just like that, he hung up. I stared at my phone, realizing something. For the first time in my life, I felt truly free. Days passed. Then a week. For the first time since this mess started, silence. No angry calls. No guilt-tripping texts. No flying monkeys sent to harass me. Nothing. I won. Curious, I checked social media. My mom had deleted her pity posts. Emily had gone completely silent. Then my aunt sent me a final update. Your parents are embarrassed. They're keeping quiet for now. Emily is still blaming you, but honestly, people are starting to see through her. I smiled. Good. They tried to manipulate me. They tried to humiliate me. They tried to use me. And in the end, they lost. For the first time in years, I felt at peace. A month passed with blessed silence. No calls, no drama, just peace. Then, out of nowhere, I got an email. From Jason. Hey man, hope you're doing well. This might be weird, but would you be open to meeting up? No pressure, just wanted to talk. I frowned. What could Jason possibly want? Curiosity got the better of me. I agreed to meet at a coffee shop. When I arrived, Jason looked relieved. I just wanted to say thanks, he admitted. Walking away from Emily was hard, but looking back, best decision I ever made. I nodded. Glad you figured it out before it was too late. Jason hesitated. Then, he said something I never expected. I know this is a long shot, but do you think we could be friends? I blinked. Jason wanted to be friends? I expected this meeting to be awkward, maybe a final attempt to convince me to talk to Emily. But he seemed genuine. You want to be friends? I repeated. Jason chuckled. I know it's weird, but honestly, you were the only one who told me the truth. Everyone else just enabled Emily's entitlement. I ignored the red flags for too long. I studied him for a moment. He wasn't wrong. Despite everything, Jason wasn't a bad guy, just another victim of my family's manipulation. Finally, I shrugged. You know what? Why not? Jason grinned. Cool. First round of coffees on me. And just like that, the person I was supposed to fund a wedding for became an actual friend. Life's funny like that. But just when I thought I'd heard the last of my parents, they made one final, desperate move. Just when I thought my parents had finally given up, I got a certified letter in the mail. From them. I sighed, already expecting more nonsense. But when I opened it, my jaw actually dropped. It was a bill. An itemized list of everything they ever spent on me growing up. Food, clothes, school supplies, all totaling over $80,000. At the bottom, a note. Since you refuse to support your family, we expect reimbursement for the cost of raising you. Consider this your final chance to make things right. I burst out laughing. They were actually trying to charge me for my own childhood. I snapped a picture of the letter, sent it to my aunt with the caption. They've lost their minds. Then, I shredded it and tossed it in the trash. They were truly out of tricks now. Or so I thought. Because the very next day, Emily showed up at my door. The next evening, there was a knock at my door. I checked the peephole and, of course, it was Emily. I debated ignoring her, but she kept knocking. Hard. Sighing, I finally opened the door. What do you want? Emily looked rough, puffy eyes, messy hair. Can I come in? No. She huffed but didn't argue. Instead, she crossed her arms. Mom and Dad are really upset. I raised an eyebrow. Oh? Was it the wedding? The Facebook post? Or the invoice for my own childhood? She had the nerve to look offended. They were just trying to be fair. I actually laughed. Fair? Emily, they kicked me out. I owed them nothing then, and I owe them nothing now. She shifted uncomfortably. Okay, but they're struggling. And I am too. Jason's gone, the wedding's cancelled, my life is falling apart. I shrugged. Not my problem. Her face twisted. God, you're so cold. You really don't care, do you? I looked her dead in the eye. I cared for years, Emily. But none of you did. And now? I've moved on. You should too. She glared at me, but for once, she had nothing to say. Then, with a frustrated scoff, she turned and stormed off. That was the last time I ever saw her. Months passed. My parents never contacted me again. Emily faded from my life. And I was better for it. Jason and I actually became good friends. Turns out, walking away from my toxic family led me to one of the most genuine friendships I'd ever had. And as for my parents? From what I heard, they were still struggling. But that was their problem. Not mine. For the first time in my life, I was free. And I never looked back.